Hey, how's everybody doing? This is Bob Gums, Concerned Forum, and I hope that you folks out there have had a very pleasant evening. And before we get any further, let me just say that I hope that you good people will subscribe to the show that we're trying to create here. Um, in case you don't know, I'm sitting over here in Kampala, Uganda. Been over here since June, and I don't know. I'm trying to recreate what I was doing back in New York. So we'll see where that takes us. Listen, also, I would like comments if you like what I'm saying or if you don't like what I'm saying, because I think that in a situation like that, it's important for the interaction between me and the people that I'm trying to reach. Uh, oh, part of my part of my appearance, but the old lady had me doing some stuff here. You know how it is. The wife wants you to do some housework. You better get it done. I don't like sleeping on no couch, so that's what's up. But the reason that I decided to do this tonight because right now it's Friday evening at eight. I was about 8:38 in Uganda, but I had the news on and I was listening to some stuff, and it really just got me so freaking angry that I said, "Well, the hell, let me jump on the YouTube and say my piece." Now, I understand that our orange-headed commander in chief uh, back in the states, King Donald the Trump, has decided that the Somalian people who came there, I think primarily like Minnesota, and these people were, they got there because they were seeking refuge. Because Somalia has a lot of problems, as do other places here in Africa. And I mean that's cool because America, in spite of the how should I say the healthy slice of bigotry that we have in America, uh, overall, we've always been like a place of refuge. So I think that that's cool. But now I guess that Trump is trying to appease his, right wing racist base. Okay. And I think that that's very unfortunate. Um, and one of the things that really freaks me out about Trump, this is a guy that knows all about marketing and branding. And, to me, he seems like he doesn't give a damn about the American brand, which is something that between calling out Somalians as garbage people and killing Latinos off the coast of Venezuela, apparently he doesn't really give a damn about the American brand. But let me go a little further here because we have some big problems in the United States and in Africa. Let me tell you. Now, these Somalian folks, the leaders in their community, uh, last year they decided that somehow they were going to separate themselves from Black Americans who predominantly and for very good, rational, historical reasons have more or less, with the exception of a few, I call them Sambo commandos, right? But generally, the Black American community is with the Democratic Party, those of us that do vote. And the Somalians, basically, when they came over here, as a community, they somehow were fed into the line that Black Americans are criminals, that they're lazy. Um, and because of that, and because they felt that Trump was, at the time when the campaign was pushing this family values bullshit, and which is nonsense. If you know anything about American history, you know, family values is something that we put on, America puts on and takes off like underwear. But the Somalians didn't know that. I would say, now watch where I'm going with this, because it's important that people understand what Trump is saying about the Somalians are wrong. It's damn wrong. It's filthy, it's viral, and it is racist. But being, or at least I try to be, a rational human being, I have to say that the Somalians as a community in Minnesota, you open yourself up for that, because that's what happens when you go to another country and you don't at least take a cursory look at the history of that country. Now, I will tell Somalians, my, my African brothers, I mean, we welcome you in America, just like we welcome Latinos, right? With Greeks, anybody, okay? Black American community is known for being a welcoming community. But what you did, as far as I'm concerned, not only did you betray the white working class, you betrayed Black Americans. And worst of all, you betrayed yourself. Because this same guy that you ran around your community with Somalians for Trump and all this, well, Trump doesn't need you anymore. So he wants to flush you down the tubes, okay? And what does he call you? He calls you garbage people, see? And I think that that's dangerous, because you get into a habit of calling people who are different from you garbage. Well, let me see now. Look at the history. When's the last time that happened? Oh, about 1939? Hmm? Ring about? And see, that's what the Somalia community, their leadership, you fell for that. You fell for the bullshit. Just like all those Latinos, for example, in Florida, who are now deported to El Salvador. See? So there, there's a balance here, right? America is a good country, but we have a very notorious dark history. And if you're going to come here as an immigrant, and this does not just go for Somalians. This goes for Caribbeans, of which I happen to be part Caribbean. My father was a Spanish speaking uh, son of a Dominican who was born in the American Virgin Islands. And my mother came from a slave family that's been in Virginia since the 1680s. So I have a kind of a, how should I say, a wider view. Okay. Um, and I learned, like, I'm here in Africa now. Believe me, I didn't do it perfectly, but I made sure I had some idea of the history and culture of the continent before I came back here. I wanted to get in touch with my African roots. I'm about 400 years too late, but nonetheless, it's there. But before I came here, I had some kind of knowledge of the place of where I was going to. And if the Somalian folks, if you had just taken the time to study what's been going on in America for the last 200, 300 years, right? And maybe, here goes the big one. Maybe if you had taken the time, especially your community leaders, your business leaders in the Somali community, if you had taken the time to talk. I mean, I have been in and out with the NAACP since the 70s, but they were the Minnesota NAACP. They would have been a good resource for you folks to speak to, for your leadership in your community to speak to, so that you would understand the place that you lived in. Um, I would also say a lot of the younger, I would say below 45 leaders in the Latino community should have done the same thing. Let me say, let me sum that part of this conversation up by saying this. Uh, One of the great American leaders, Frederick Douglass, former runaway slave, who became one of the most famous men in 19th century America, uh, he had something to say about this same subject. Uh, when he was on the run, after he had became famous as an abolitionist leader, he had to go to the British Isles to hide from his slave master until his friends in America, in New York and Massachusetts, were able to make uh, an arrangement with the former slave master of Frederick Douglass. But he spent some time in Ireland, and he was touched by the kindness, by the humanity of the people in Ireland, and especially their music, because their music reminded him so much of what they used to call, pardon the phrase, Negro spirituals, right? Because it came from the soul. See, he felt that it was so sad that when the Irish first came here, they were taught to say nigger. See, and that is something that unfortunately that racist bigoted streak in America that we still have today. That's what they call them now, MAGA, okay, or Reuters. But that's nothing new. See, and unfortunately, a lot of black people, okay, because listen, Somalian folks, you look in the mirror, you look just like me. There's not that much difference. Same thing with Caribbean folks. Same thing with the rest of black people of the African continent. But you have been played to a large extent, right? The racist in America, and no, everyone in America is not a racist. I know that for a fact. Okay, but that group, okay, you get played by these people. But when I was in the first time I was in Germany, I was like 17. Okay, I was in that's before I went in the Navy. I was in the Army, and I had a beautiful young German lass, and we got intimate. And we wake up, or I wake up. It's like about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I have this peculiar feeling of somebody trying to, I don't know, feel my rear end. At first I thought it was something sexual, but this blonde woman looks at me, and I look at her, and I say, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Well, they said that you guys have a takeout." And that really freaked me out. And I said, "Where'd you get this nonsense from?" And this was something that she said she was told by my comrades in arms, fellow American soldiers who happen to be white. Now, I had heard tales about that from the older cats in the neighborhood who had, served in World War II, who had been in Germany and what have you. But this happened to me. This was like 1972, and I'm like, damn. I mean, they're still doing that. And see, I didn't mean to digress, but as crude as I'm putting it, I think that's the Somalian situation in Minnesota. I think that's what happened, you know. And it happens to Somalian people. It happens to people who come from Africa. It happens to people that come from the Caribbean. This idea that Black Americans are your enemy. And see, we're not your enemy, okay? Um, Unfortunately, I think that, a lot of you guys, for a lot of you, I think it might be too late that you realize that. But you fell into the whole racist American thing. See, um, don't get me wrong. Now, white Americans, working class white Americans, are also victims of this. A lot of times we think that, oh, well, is this white hate, white racism here in America? No. Um, as I've gotten older, I've come to learn it's not so much hate as it is ignorance. I mean, if you're taught bullshit from the time you're a toddler, uh, it's going to be damn hard for you to erase that crazy programming. And it's just a fact of life. And when you come from another country, from India or Africa, uh, or a white European, it doesn't make a difference. You are confronted with this insanity, and I just think that the Somali community, your leadership made a big mistake. Okay, um, because you fell for the nonsense. How do I know that you fell for the nonsense? Because you ran around with, Somalians for Trump. Okay. And well, you see where that has gotten you. Okay. Be careful. And I would say this to anyone. And I'm living in Uganda right now. Okay. And trying to do a business here. And I would say to anybody, do a little research of the place where you're trying to go to. Okay. Know who the players are. Know the history for at least the last 100 years of any place that you go to. Because if you don't, you're asking for trouble. And that is what has happened to the Somalian people. That's that's what happened to we see what's happening in America. Trump has created a private police force to basically chase brown skinned Latino people through the streets and throwing them in the back of vans. And it's no different than the way that they used to have the slave catchers run, try to run through the streets of the North, hunting runaway slaves. Not that much of a difference. But see, the tragic irony, a lot of these people that they're chasing and throwing in the back of vans, you supported the Trump candidacy for president. And I really listen. I think that with Somalians, Latinos, uh, nobody's supposed to be treated the way that Trump is treating these people. And that brings me to something else. Mm. You have people Like it was that bastard, what's his name? Tom Cotton. What is he? Senator from Arkansas, right? Talking about legal migration. And then you have Trump. That's how he started off his whole campaign, talking about Mexico. Oh, well, they're not sending us their best. They're sending us murderers, rapists, and thieves. Well, I'd like to ask Mr. Trump, who the hell do you think came over here? The so-called colonists. And you talk about, oh, they're not sending us their best people. America did not start off with the best people. Two people, right? Two groups of people. The indigenous people whose land this was, right? And the Africans that you brought from Africa, okay, to work this land and basically lay the foundations for the American empire. Everybody else were basically a bunch of scared bums trying to come over here to the what became the United States, trying to make it. So where in the hell did you get this idea about, oh, they're not sending us their best? Well, Europe, you did not send your best to what became the United States. All you got to do is read the goddamn history books, and you can see that for yourself. So, what kind of mental or verbal games are you trying to play? I think, my personal opinion, I think that one of the reasons why this country is so screwed up, excuse me, why America is so screwed up is because you have a bunch of people running around who have no idea who the hell they are or where the hell they came from and why. See? And that creates problems. That creates a group like MAGA, right? Basically, working class white folks who feel somehow agree. And they really don't know why. See? And they're just like the Groypers. Well, I think with Groypers, a big problem with the Groypers is that they can't seem to get laid, which I can understand because generally, unless you're one of the wacky Republican women, no woman likes a geek. Right? So, there you have it. But that's what happens. See, that's what happens when a society makes it a point to ignore history, to disregard history, because, and that's why I say as I've gotten older, I have tried to be careful about, oh, they're just a bunch of goddamn racists. Okay. Um, yeah, in some cases, yeah, they got bad people. But a lot of times, it's because people don't know. Okay? Your parents didn't teach you. Because a lot of times they didn't know. Right? And so much of American history has been either ignored or hidden. And that's not good because, see, that does not help a society to grow up, to progress. See? Now, we got a situation, and especially for my African viewers here on the continent, which really upsets me. I'm not going to be arrogant enough to tell the president of Rwanda and the president of the Congo uh, how they should conduct their business. But I see this thing about Trump having a hand in trying to make a peace between them. And I really don't understand how in the hell Trump is running an administration that is based upon white Christian nationalist supremacy. And my question is, why in the hell would you have someone like that trying to negotiate a peace between two African countries? I don't get that. And, I will say that I think that a lot of, many African leaders here on the continent And I mean them no disrespect. But if you have not grown up, born and raised in American racism, and that I don't want to twist it. I'm not saying that all Americans are racist, but unfortunately, we have like, how would you call it? We have people we have a certain class of people that want to perpetuate divisiveness. They've been doing it for about 300 years, 350 years now. Okay. And if you don't understand that dynamic, I think that when you deal with America, especially as America is now, I think that you are at kind of a disadvantage. I think that what we should all hope for, both in the West and on the African continent, we should hope for a day when Africa as a continent will handle her own problems with justice and humanity. And I don't believe that I'm betraying my American side by saying that because I was brought up to believe, as inconsistent as it was in practice, I was brought up to believe that America's supposed to be about, you know, peace, justice, equality, opportunity, so on and so forth. And I think that when I see an administration that we have now in the United States, I'm very leery. Quite frankly, my opinion, I think the whole world should be leery of Donald Trump and his supporters and their worldview. Remember, this is the administration that feels it's okay to blow people to smithereens off the coast of Venezuela. And they have not presented any evidence of any drugs yet. And that really angers me because the fact being, a Navy guy, which I am, um, I'm used to being on the ship where something looks amiss on another ship. We stop and board and find out what's going on, not just blow people out of smithereens. But I say now that if this was about Europeans, that wouldn't be happening. Okay. And I believe that Trump and his people, they believe they have a right to basically take Latin America back to like 1921, right? The days of colonialism and imperialism. I don't believe that that's good for the United States. I don't believe it's good for the world. But I'm just saying this so that African leaders understand that if you insist upon bringing this present United States administration into your business, this is what you're bringing in, okay? Which, by the way, this is the same administration that has done double backflips to do everything to erase the contributions of not only Black people, but Latino people, Asian people, right? In the fight for freedom. It's taking down World War II memorials, taking away references of black black regiments in the Civil War, all that good stuff. Okay, so I'm just saying you need to think. You need to, maybe you need to find some Black Americans to school you on what the Trump administration is all about. Now, part of my naivete or my ignorance, but I don't believe that an American administration dedicated to white Christian nationalist supremacy, I don't think that they can really be of any constructive help trying to mediate issues between African nations. I just don't believe it because I know them. I see what I see what they do. The black people, people of color in the United States. I mean, remember, this president, this Donald Trump, is the one that referred to African nations as shithole countries. And, that bothers me because I know that we have a problem of ignorance in America among black Americans. But like I say, my father was from the Caribbean, the American Caribbean, but the Caribbean nonetheless. And as I said before, my mother was from Virginia, and I'm born and raised in New York. And when I was a little kid, my father used to tell me something. He said that you can be as American as you want to be, but what did he say? You can be as American as you want to be, and you could be from Canada, Britain. Doesn't make a difference. Until Africa is standing tall, no black person on this planet will ever be respected. And that's something I have carried with me throughout my life. I mean, me and my old mates will argue like cats and dogs, but a lot of the stuff he said, as I get older, I realize he made some good sense. See, I mean, how often do you see the United States disrespecting Ireland or Italy or Germany or Poland? Now, of course, we got Trump now, and his basic problem, one of the basic problems with him is he just has a no class and bad manners. Okay, but he has never disrespected um, any Western nation the way that he has spoken about African nations. See, so once again, I would say to African leaders here, think about who you ask to settle your internal differences. Quite frankly, um, what else do I want to say? Ah, I had some of this stuff written down here. Ah, let me hit on my final topic here. This guy, what's his name? John Henley. Now, I understand he's a correspondent for The Guardian, and he says that one of the big problems is that Trump appears to espouse the racist theory, the great replacement theory. And he feels that he is aligned with the far right wing nationalist movements that you find in Western Europe now. So again, I say to African leaders, what possible use with an administration like that? How would that be of use to you and the issues, your internal issues that you're dealing with? You're fighting. Nigeria has issues. Rwanda, the DRC. I don't get it, right? And also the fact that Trump is desperately trying to break the BRIC nations, of which South Africa is a major part. So that's my advice, quite frankly. Um, maybe if you want technical expertise or help with it, I think that you might be better off waiting for an administration that is not so outwardly anti people of color, and in particular, not so anti black people, whether they be from Africa, the West Indies, or America. So that's my feeling on the matter. Okay. And one other thing, this whole and you see this with Western countries, this whole thing about, oh well, we don't want immigrants and blah blah. Hey man, let me ask you something. The last 400 years, the West has gone into uh, the southern part of the globe and have basically raped, pillaged, stolen for the last 400 years. And on top of that, when Western world had their two genocidal wars, World War One, World War Two, you used millions of Asians, Indians, Africans, people from the Caribbean. I know, like I said, on my father's side, okay, in the British Islands, we had relatives that fought for the Brits. The battle, what is it, the Battle of London, and all this other good stuff. And now, all of a sudden, you have a problem with immigrants of color. Now, I will tell you quite honestly, these stories about, oh, they want to bring Sharia law. No, that's a no-no, quite frankly. Uh, in the West, we got it set up so that your religion is your business. Okay? There's certain things you can't do. You can't, marry your 8-year-old daughter to somebody else. Um, things of that nature. But by and large, your religion or lack thereof is your damn business. And so for this nonsense about, oh, well, we're being taken over. Uh, no, number one, nobody told you to stop having sex. Don't blame me for that. Okay, you don't want to get laid. That's your problem. Don't blame um, the people of color on the planet. That's on you. And that's on your government because you have made situations and conditions so harsh that it's damn near impossible for people to actually have and raise families and have a house and blah blah blah. To me, that seems like more of an economic problem. Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to say. Second of all, all these immigrants and stuff that the West, France, Britain, United States, that you cry about. Hey, man, maybe if you hadn't been so busy for the last 100 years or so, going into these countries, overthrowing governments, and making life unstable for people, maybe you wouldn't have this big rush of immigrants. The United States, my country, we fought in the Middle East now for the last 20 some odd years. And yeah, a lot of people from that part of the world ran to Germany, Belgium, what have you. Well, the West as a whole, you created that problem because human beings are human beings. If they're trapped in a no-win situation, they're going to try and survive. It's just that damn simple. And I get so tired. That's one thing that really pisses me off when I hear people crying about immigrants. Number one, especially Americans, because this is a nation that America is a nation that was built on immigrants, both forced immigration and willing immigration. And this whole nonsense about, oh well, these immigrants are overpopulating us. I will say this about America. Um, Looking at MAGA and workers and what have you, maybe if you weren't such damn geeks, you wouldn't have a problem finding a woman to procreate with you. Because I happen to know for a fact, if you're so interested in keeping that white European descendant line, right? A lot of white women don't want to be bothered with you because you're geeks. It's just that simple. I mean, you could pick up any newspaper or anything on social media, and you see their complaints. I guess because you're ugly, because you have become a lot of you, unfortunately, have become racist, and racism is a very ugly thing. Okay, and most women don't like ugly. I'm sorry, you know. And don't blame immigrants for that. Don't blame immigrants because you're fucked up. Excuse me, because you're screwed up. Okay, that's not right. It really isn't. Just like was H-1B. Okay, this is the only time I've ever come close to agreeing with Donald Trump. God forgive me, but he does have a point, right? We have gotten dumber in America over the last 30 years. Okay, and a lot of it has been race based, brought about by a certain segment of the elites because they don't want to pay taxes. And they're scared that you start having programs that educate not just black and brown workers, but white workers. Okay, and somehow that frightens them, just like the idea of having national health care frightens them. So what they do, they give their money to the most divisive candidates, right, to keep this whole racial hatred bullshit going back and forth. And we forget, just like science tells us, there's only one race, and that's the human race. And when Americans learn that, right, I think that we'll have we'll have a country about progress, and not that not like what we have now. Listen, I know this is kind of one of my shorter little talks, but I got to get back to work. I hear my wife calling me. Listen, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and if you didn't, please tell me what your opinions are, and I'll catch you the next time. You take care. This is Bob Gums with the Concerned Forum. See you later. Peace.